All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you all for being here tonight. I know that this has been a crazy time of year for everybody, but we've got plenty of the food in the back, so please go back for seconds, thirds. Luke, I'm looking at you. I have expectations. And I figured, just with the weather going on this week, that some soup would be nice and comforting. So, and also thank you to Angela Christensen and the foundation for not only picking up the food tonight, but for sponsoring it. So, as you guys may know, that this class is sponsored by the foundation. They help put it on and everything, and so. And they help with the food, so thank you, Angela, and the foundation for chipping in tonight. So I'm super excited for the topic that we have this evening. It's a newer one this year. I've asked Heather O'Brien, the president of the Teachers Union, the Mesa Valley Education Association, to be here to talk about their role and what they do to help teachers in our district. So I'm really excited for tonight's topic. And of course, we'll have the presentation, have some time for questions and answers at the end, and then just to talk about whatever is on your mind. So without further ado, I'll introduce, you know her, Miss Angela Christensen, the fabulous Miss Angela.
Thank you, Kat. Kat does a wonderful job of organizing this, getting our speakers lined up, so I sincerely appreciate that. And picking up the food is an easy one, so thank you. Well, I wanted to give you a little bit of an update about what we've been doing with the foundation, because it feels like, even though this may be a little bit slower season, typically every week something comes up, and we get the opportunity to share that with our community. And so a couple of things that have been going on lately, and you might have seen on the news, a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, we were able to give out our second teacher grant. We had applications from about 44 teachers, totaling a little over $45,000. And we went through a review process and selected about 22 grants, and we were able to give a little over $10,000 to those teachers. We had been doing sponsoring the professional learning for quite a while, but we also kind of thought we've got a lot of teachers who have things that are close to their heart that they would like us to cover, any kind of professional training that they have. And so that's kind of been the neat thing about doing these online grants. It's been really helpful. We get a crew of about 4 different folks together. We read through them and then evaluate them and make a selection. So that was pretty exciting. And then yesterday was a really fun day. We fund for 2 different things, professional learning for teachers and technology for students. And last spring, I was asked by one of the school board members, they said, hey, I know Riverside Education Center really needs some Chromebooks. Is there any way you can fund that? And I just, there are things that people ask me on a regular basis. Hey, can you fund this? Can you fund this? And I knew that, first of all, it was technology for students, so that definitely aligned with what we are doing. But the timing wasn't perfect. And so later this fall, we had made a decision as a foundation board that we were going to fund Chromebooks at high schools. And we started off with a cart of Chromebooks at Palisade High School way back at the start of the school year. And then I knew that Grand Junction High School, after I talked with our tech department over at the school district, that Grand Junction High School was the next one who had one of the ratios that was one of the lower ones. And so I made a quick call to the principal at Grand Junction High School, and I said, hey, I know Riverside Education Center is meeting at your school in the afternoons, and I didn't know if there was any chance your school is slated for the next donation of a cart of Chromebooks. Is there any chance, and it's Megan Renicky who's the principal there, is there any chance you would be willing to share this cart with Riverside Education Center so you guys could use them in the day and they could use them at night? I don't know when I've had a faster response from somebody. She's like, you bet. Of course we can do that. And so anytime we can partner up with groups, that's really exciting. And so yesterday, Joy Hudak, she's the executive director of the Riverside Education Center, and Megan Renicky, and then the most fun thing, we had about probably 5 or 6 kids who are part of the after-school Riverside Education Center come together and just celebrate that we were able to donate that. And it's just making a big difference. So those are fun wins, and it really helps because we also, as a foundation, are right in the midst of our fundraising season. And so that's the time we really have from September until the very beginning of December. That is when we are trying to get sponsorships from lots of different folks to sponsor our White Ice celebration. And so it never hurts to then be able to showcase where they see either on the Sentinel or on TV, oh yes, exactly what we ask you to donate to, that's what you're donating to. And so if any of you happen to be interested in that, I've got sponsorship levels. If that happens to be something that would interest you, we have individuals. We start at the $500 level and go up from there. And if that's not something that you're interested in, we sure want to invite you to our White Ice celebration. I think I shared that maybe at the very first time we gathered, and that would be on Saturday, February 2nd. That'll be at the CMU Ballroom, and I've started making those plans and getting things ready for that. So that's kind of what we've been doing as a foundation. We're still meeting once a month. We're down at Enstrom's boardroom, which was a real treat to get to go down there because there's a little chocolate and toffee. But we're meeting. Can I answer any questions about the foundation? I know the last two times we've been pretty busy, but if there's a question that you have, I'd be more than happy to answer that. All right. Well, without further ado, then I get to turn it over to Heather for our presentation tonight.
Do you need me to use the mic? I have a great teacher voice.
Yeah, I know.
I really hate the mic. I've worked really hard on my teacher voice all these years, so I don't have to use the mic. Hi, I'm Heather O'Brien. I'm the president of the Mesa Valley Education Association. Can I ask you, how did you find out about this group? Where are you? What sectors are you coming from? I'd like to know a little bit about you guys first.
I work for the school district.
What do you do?
Community partnerships.
Oh, excellent. Oh, you're Luke. Name, face, got it together. Okay, excellent.
I'm Tanya Travis. I'm actually a candidate for office, so this is one
Yes.
way that I'm really trying to orient to all those aspects of the school.
Excellent. I've heard your name too.
Josh Stewart, Red Cross.
Uh huh.
Got a 4-year-old that's in preschool in Rimrock.
Excellent.
They graduate from the district.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids went to Rimrock too. In fact, I worked really hard to get that place built. So, my youngest daughter was the first group of kindergartners to go through, and yeah, so. Excellent. Okay. Aha! I know your name. Yeah. Okay. Hi. You wanted to know more? Yeah. Well, besides teaching, I think stay-at-home mom's the hardest job on the planet. So yeah. Hi.
Steve Phil, multi-generational educator, 50 years.
Excellent. Were you an educator here in the district?
I was my last actual presentation job was as an adjunct over at CMU.
Oh, CMU. Excellent. Okay, great.
Junior and senior recruit of mine went to high school. Miss Berger was my son's kindergarten teacher.
Wow. Yeah. You know, she doesn't look that, just to say the word old. I mean, you know, but I've met other people in the community who had her a while ago, like some people who are teaching but now I'm getting old enough that some of my students are also teachers now too, so it catches up to all of us. And yeah.
I don't have any kids, but I will someday.
Excellent. And are you in the public, what do you do?
I work for community hospital.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, thank you. That kind of gives me a little bit of background. Do you mind if I sit? Would that be terribly unprofessional? It's like, I don't know what o'clock at night, but if I could just sit, that would be great. So a little bit about me. I graduated from Grand Junction High School, class of '87. Went to school, grew up here, went to Orchard Mesa, then junior high. I'm delighted. I keep begging to be the one to light the match when they burn that building down, because it hasn't changed at all. And went to Columbus Elementary, which is now New Emerson School. Yeah, so when I go in that building, and nothing's changed either in 1.5 million years. Like most graduates, left town and said, I'm getting out of this silly little hick town, and moved away to the big city, and got married to someone who I had met at Grand Junction High School, and then we lived in Seattle for a while, and then when we decided to have children, we thought, well, this was a great place to grow up. We've done our big city thing, let's go home. So we moved home in 97, and then started having kids, and so my kids have grown up here. So I taught at the University of Washington for a bit, and then had my own business while my kids were really little here, and then decided to go back into teaching. And so I went to CMU just to get a 1-year fast track teaching certification. And I taught at Mount Garfield Middle School for 13 years, 12 years, 13 years, I can't remember. And loved my stint there. But as my youngest came, so we live in Fruita, but my kids came to middle school with me, so they were both in my class. And as my youngest got done with my class, just kind of felt like, okay, I'm sort of ready for something new. This position as president isn't elected, the membership votes, and so I decided to run for office, and voila. And so here I am. I'm finishing, this is my 4th year of 2 terms, so I ran a second time. You'd think 1 would be enough. Why would I run again? But I felt like I wasn't done. I felt like I had more work to do, and so this will be my last year, and I'll be outgoing in May. And it's been a tremendous experience. I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about teachers. I'm passionate about students. So it's been a real pleasure for me to be able to advocate on behalf of teachers and students in this capacity. And I think in many ways it's really helped me grow up. You know, Angela and I literally grew up together. Her father was my softball coach. We've known each other since we were 8, 10, I don't know, a long, long time. And in some ways we haven't changed at all, but in some ways she can probably verify how much I've changed in this capacity, because of what our association really is. And so I say association, sometimes I get introduced as the teachers union president. I like to call it an association for a couple of reasons. One, because this isn't a terribly pro-union town. This is what most people think of, right? I do have rings, no one kisses them. I don't have baseball bats in my trunk. I've never put cement blocks on people's feet and thrown them in the river. That's not what I am, but that's often kind of the persona I'm given by a lot of people in the public. And so what I really wanted to convey to this group, and forgive me if I look at my notes here, what I really wanted to convey to this group is who we really are, and how my passion for teaching and teachers and students has transferred into this role. So this is who we are. We're the Mesa Valley Education Association, and we call it an association because we're professionals, like doctors and medical associations, like lawyers and lawyer associations. We have a teaching association. And it's about much more than just advocating for higher salaries, which is usually what people think of. This is actually our mission and our vision statement. We are educators working together with our community, because we believe we're part of the community, and we believe we have to work in tandem with the community to build a better future for our students. And we do that through quality teachers, quality learning, and accountability for all. So how is it that we do these, that we fulfill our mission? Well, a lot of it is by working in tandem with these 2 other entities. The school board and the school district are not the enemy of the association at all. And that's, when I go to president meetings across the state for the Colorado Education Association, I listen to the stories of other presidents in their districts. And I am so grateful to be serving here, where we see this as a 3-man team here. We're all on the same team, and we're all in it for the same reasons. And in other places across the state, there's a lot of animosity and a lot of fighting and a lot of pounding fists on tables. And that's not our approach at all. I get blamed a lot for, buying the board members, or the board members are in my pocket. It's true that we do get heavily involved in school board elections, because this is our profession, and we want the people who are on the school board to be pro-public education. And if you've followed stories across the state, there are other districts where school boards are very anti-public education and really get themselves elected so they can start to dismantle public education. And that's not something that we as teachers want to support. So we do spend a lot of time and effort knocking on doors on behalf of candidates that we've endorsed, because we feel like it's important that we have pro-public education people on our board. But once we get them elected, I don't own them. They don't owe me any favors. And if you know any of these good people, you know that they can't be purchased. I mean, you don't tell Amy Davis what to do. You don't tell John Williams what to do. These are very strong individuals, and they tell me off on a pretty regular basis, and I tell them off on a pretty regular basis, but we work together because always our mission is to be moving this district forward. So even when there are times when we disagree, we stay in, I call it a game, not like in the negative term, but this is like a game because we're all on the same team. So we stay in the game with each other because to give up, the risks are too high. Too much is at stake. So even when we disagree, we stay at the table and we talk it through until we can figure out a plan. I feel the same way also about the school district. The superintendent is not my enemy. The district administrators are not my enemies. We're all working for exactly the same mission and for the same purposes. And so we've got to be able to work together. And so I think when I was referring earlier to, I feel like I've grown up a lot in this role. And Angela, you can't attest too loudly, but I'm a person who speaks my mind. I'm not afraid to say what I'm thinking, but knowing how important this partnership is, I have learned a little bit more decorum. Yes? See, there you go. I've learned to be more diplomatic, and I've learned, most importantly, to listen more than I talk. And that's been a great experience for me, and I hope has helped forge this relationship to be even tighter. The difficulties that we've been through this fall, I think in other districts it would have ripped associations and districts and boards apart. But because we've had such a long-standing relationship and team approach to all of this, we were able to weather it together, and I'm looking forward to our interim superintendent being put in place. I'm looking forward to moving our district forward again. But I've been really appreciative of how, when all of this happened, we were immediately talking about how to solve this problem together. It wasn't that we all went in our separate camps and thought, okay, we're going to duke it out. So that's very much our philosophy here in our district, and that doesn't happen in every district. So again, with our mission, how do we ensure these things? Well, so here's some of the things that the association does. Competitive salaries are certainly very important to us. You probably can't see this very well, but these are not average salaries. These are base salaries as of last year. These are our regional districts, so Delta, Montrose, Garfield County, Roaring Fork, and Durango, and then us. For our base salary, Mesa County is ahead of any of our other regional districts. So within our region, we're paying pretty well. But as you well know, these districts are much, much smaller than we are. So this is our like-sized districts, which are all on the eastern slope. So around 22 to 50,000 students, around 1,300 teachers to upwards of 2,500 teachers. It kind of depends. But with our like-sized districts, we're sort of right in the middle. We're below Jeffco, Academy, St. Vrain, Greeley, Aurora, and Boulder. Now we know Boulder's always an outlier. We get that. But Jeffco and Academy and St. Vrain and Greeley are not really terribly different from us in demographics and cost of living and such. We're just above Littleton, Poudre, Pueblo, Adams, and Colorado Springs. So competitive salaries is really important to us because we are constantly losing, especially brand new teachers, to the eastern slope. The kids have $100,000 in debt. They're going to move to Denver and take a job for 10 grand more than they can get here. In some districts, 10 grand more, upwards of 5 to 10. If they're lucky enough to land a job in Boulder, they might be getting $10,000 to $15,000 more than we're able to pay here. So the question is always, and this is probably not different than the private sector, do we pay wages based on what our region can hold, or do we pay wages so that we can compete with Denver? I don't think that's unusual for education, right? So certainly our negotiations team is always trying to get the highest salary that we can to attract new teachers. The teaching shortage that you're hearing about nationally, Grand Junction's always about 10 years behind the rest of the nation, it seems like. So the teaching shortage that you've been hearing about for years is really starting to hit here. We currently have 5 open teaching positions. And at the beginning of school, like the first day of school, I think we had 12, and we filled 7 of them. We still have 5. So we're not at crisis yet with the teacher shortage, but it has definitely gotten worse the 3 years that I've been president. We're having a harder time filling them. And we're having more people retire early. Teaching's not the same job that it was when I started. And and some of that's for good reasons. I think our performance-based learning vision is really what's best for kids in this generation of kids, but it's sometimes hard to teach old dogs new tricks. And so, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but when you've been teaching for 20, 25 years, and it's so new that it makes you feel like you're a first-year teacher again, and you're at that 25-year mark and you're looking at your para. For some teachers, it's a decision of I don't know that I have it in me to be like a first-year teacher all over again. I'm just going to go ahead and retire. So we have more people retiring, and our HR department goes to all of the career fairs at the colleges and tries to groom new teachers, and they'll look at us, but when they look at what they can make on the Eastern Slope, we're not attracting as many teachers as we need to. So that's something that we have to pay attention to in the association. Some of the other things that we pay attention to besides just salaries and benefits are we have a cabinet. So I'm the only paid employee. I'm still technically on the district's payroll so that I don't lose any of my PERA retirement benefits. I don't lose any of my years of service. But what happens is we collect our members' dues, and then the district charges us monthly for my salary, and then we reimburse the district from our dues. So dues-paying members pay my paycheck, literally. I'm the only paid employee. I don't have a secretary. I don't have anything. I water the plants. I take out the trash. I answer phone calls. I attend meetings. I pay the rent. All of that. So I have a lot of volunteers. I have an executive council, which is made up of 11 other teachers. They're full-time teachers, and they volunteer to be our governing body. Every building has at least 1 to 2 representatives. The high school, it depends on how many members you have in your building, how many representatives you can have. So some of the buildings have 5 or 6, like I think Junction High School has enough members that they have 6 building reps. All those building reps donate their time. They come to meetings. They help with advocacy issues in the classrooms. And then all of the people who are on these cabinet committees are also full-time teachers donating their time. So we have some people who sit on the insurance board and try to talk with the district about what can we do to make our insurance better. We have a professional development team. All of the offerings for teachers that the district provides, they get input from our MVEA reps to find out, is this really what teachers want? Is this what teachers need? And then we give that input. Educator effectiveness is the evaluation process that's mandated by the Colorado Department of Education from Senate Bill 191. We have teachers who volunteer their time to sit on a committee and discuss our evaluation process. We have a workload committee. There are a lot of innovative ideas going on in our district, which is great. There are a lot of mandates from the state, which are mostly unfunded, which adds to the workload, along with learning all of the other new initiatives in our district. And so we have a committee that looks at workload and makes recommendations to the districts about, okay, can we roll back on this? Like, for example, there are some assessments at the elementary level in particular which are state mandated. There are 2 that are state mandated, and then there are a couple that the district has decided they want to be able to gather longitudinal assessment data. So they put a whole assessment plan in place. Our first, second, and particularly second and third grade teachers have been really highly impacted with their workload with the amount of testing that they've had to do this year. So our workload team took a survey, gathered some data, brought the information back to the district leaders and said, this is what our teachers are saying. They haven't had enough training. They don't know the purpose quite of these tests, and they haven't been able to effectively build their communities in their classrooms. They haven't started up like, what's your name and what are the rules for our class and how are we going to be a community of learners in this classroom, because it's been so impacted by testing. So we made some recommendations. The district's team said that they wanted some time to think. I just came from a meeting prior to this, where the district team came back and said, okay, these are the tests that we're thinking of cutting out. That we can't cut out the mandated ones, but this is what we can cut. What do you think? And so I left, and my team was meeting alone to see what they thought about their proposal. That's some of that real collaboration that we have that I appreciate so much, that our district is willing to listen to teachers, wants teachers' feedback, and we're always there to try to gather surveys or get in buildings and talk with teachers and get their input so that we can give really accurate feedback to the district so they know how to move forward. So that's the purpose of all of these cabinet committees. Advocacy and grievance is probably another one that people often will immediately think of when they think of the Teachers Association. sometimes I get all sorts of things out in the community from non-teachers when they find out what my job is. And often I'll hear, oh, your job is to protect bad teachers. I wanted to clarify that a little bit. This is my profession. I have spent most of my adult life in this profession. I take it very seriously. And it's a craft that I try to hone. I don't want bad teachers in my profession. They make the rest of us look bad. I don't want an adult in front of children who is not good for children. So I do not protect bad teachers. There is a due process that we have outlined in our negotiated agreement. I do want to make sure due process is followed, because that's just fair, and that's typical of other places in our community outside of education as well. We have a lot of great principals. We have some inexperienced principals who are fledglings and they're trying to figure things out. Sometimes they make snap judgments. I want a due process put in place to make sure that there aren't snap judgments made, right? So the advocacy and grievance team and myself are out there. Most of the time, I wish I'd taken more classes in college about marriage counseling, because that's kind of what I feel like, right? Because you got two human beings, they have different perspectives, they're nif- nawing back and forth about whose perspective is right. And I can go in, or someone from my advocacy and grievance team can come in and just facilitate a conversation. Okay, Mr. Principal, I heard you say XYZ. Okay, teacher, what did you hear? Okay. Principal, I heard him say XYZ. What did you hear? I mean, it's just this facilitating conversation is most of my day, really. And it's great because we have such good relationships in our district with our association. When I come in a building, I don't see principals running or calling for their lawyer or getting scared. They know I'm there to problem solve with them. They know I'm also kind of on their team. The teacher knows that I'm going to be there to advocate for them as well. 99.9% of the time, a facilitated conversation takes care of everything, and it was just miscommunication, because that's kind of how humans are, right? We make snap judgments and we say the wrong thing, or we don't communicate it well enough, and then there are misunderstandings. So that's really mostly what our advocacy and grievance team is about. In the rare instance that there's actually a violation of board policy or a violation of our negotiated agreement, it's usually because the principal doesn't know. Like, just out of the blue, I'll just say, okay, so teachers in our negotiated agreement have a 30-minute duty-free lunch. If a principal says, hey, we're going to have a meeting during lunchtime, and a member says, no, I'm going to go take my lunch because I really need to just decompress, and a principal says, oh, I'm going to write you up, well, they would call me, and I would call the principal. 9 times out of 10, it's a brand new principal who hasn't ever read the agreement, and I say, hey, in section 20.6, or whatever it is, if the negotiated agreement says they're given a duty-free lunch, you're actually in violation. And usually they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I won't do that again. And it's it's cleared up. So there's hardly, I mean, in my 3 years, I can think of like one time there was actually a total violation that went into a grievance format. Usually it's miscommunication or just a lack of information. So all of those, I mean, I do all of these things as well, but there are also times where I send out my cabinet chairs to do that work for a couple of reasons. I believe highly in distributive leadership. I don't want all the members to think that I'm the one to solve their problems. I want them to feel empowered to solve their own problems, and I want other people to be there to help them. And I think it's really important that all of us as leaders think about who's going to replace us. And if I do all the saving and all the work, and then there's no one to replace me, and I'm going to be gone on May 31st. So I've got to be grooming people who are going to replace me and are going to replace all of these chair people too. So I'm constantly trying to spread the wealth. But I'm always very mindful that I'm the only one getting paid, and all of these people are donating their time because they believe in our association and they believe in the teaching profession. So I'm always very grateful for them and try not to overload them with too much. But usually they're pretty eager to take things on. So it's a good crew that I'm blessed to work with. So that's I didn't want to. That's kind of in a nutshell who we are and what we do. I thought I'd really just kind of open it up for questions and answers.
So how many teachers are in the association? Do you join it automatically, or is it a voluntary decision?
So in the state of Colorado, you can't have compulsory union joining. In other states, you can do that, but Colorado doesn't allow that. So anyone who joins the association has done so freely of their own will. We have about 900 members, and there are about 1,300 teachers across the district. So we're pretty, 65% of teachers have joined. the dues are $64 a month, which isn't, it is something for me in my 15th year of teaching, but isn't something that I really think too much about because it comes out of my payroll. Where it impacts is those new teachers who have those deep student loans and they're only making $37,000 a year. I mean, that's barely above the poverty rate. So it's a big commitment on their part. And we have reduced dues we don't set our dues because the Colorado Education Association does that. So we have reduced dues for 1 year. So we try to do other things for our new teachers too, so they're really feeling like they're getting a lot out of their dues besides all of those things I mentioned. We have a group that's called Empower, and it's specifically around trying to get better training and support for our early career educators. So I have some great 5th and 6th year teachers who go and meet with the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd year teachers and find out what are your needs, what do you need lesson plans in science, 6th grade? Okay, I'm going to hook you up with so-and-so over at Bookcliff Middle School who's been teaching it for 20 years. And they try to really support those newbie teachers because it's a big sacrifice for them. That was probably more information than you asked, but there you go.
You mentioned that you were 12 teachers short. I know they do this sometimes in special ed, but do you guys ever do like contracts with agencies and when you're desperate for teachers? I was just curious.
I'm supposed to be recorded here. That would probably be I think HR could answer that better than I could because I don't know. I know that there are teachers on emergency SPED license, like maybe they're in a special education program right now, but they haven't graduated. They'll give them an emergency license so that we can get them working in the classroom because special education, I think all 5 of the ones that are still unfilled are in special education. It's getting increasingly harder to fill. So they do grant emergency contracts for that. I'm not aware of contracting out for other content areas, but that would be a question for HR.
Besides increasing salaries, what are the teachers' other concerns? What are they asking of you besides we need more money?
Yeah. I would say it differs from levels. So elementary planning time is part of our negotiated agreement. So elementary teachers get 300 minutes a week to do their planning. Middle school teachers get 450. Half of those are individual planning time and then half of them are team time. That's because of the way middle school is organized. A team of teachers shares like the same 90 kids. So they need team time to be able to talk about kids, and then if they want to do intercurriculum skills, like sometimes I would pair up with my social studies teachers and we'd both be teaching something about the Civil War, and I'd be looking at it from a literary standpoint and she'd be looking at it from a historical standpoint. So we've got to have team time to plan that curriculum. So they get 450 minutes and then high school gets 400 minutes. Our elementary teachers need more planning time, and they have had some more in the past when we had every kid went to PE and every kid went to music and every kid went to music, PE, and art. We used to have art. And then during the budget crunch, a lot of those things got cut. Art got cut completely as a class. PE and music were cut back to half time. So that saved us a lot of money when we were having to cut $11 million out of the budget, but it really impacted how much time elementary teachers have to plan. So that early release Wednesday that everyone hates in the public, and I get it, I kind of hated it when I had kids in elementary school too, was an attempt to try to get them a little bit more planning time, but they still only have 300. So elementary planning time is an enormous issue. The calendar committee that's happening right now is looking, and one of the things that calendar committee is supposed to address is that early release plan time. We just need to figure out how to fix the problem, and that's the focus of that team. Middle schools and high schools, I would say it probably has to do more with this transformation into performance-based learning, and if they're veteran teachers, how much of their practice kind of has to shift into a new way of thinking, so they feel pretty overwhelmed with the new initiatives. And then there's essentially a grade book that's called Schoology. So it's a whole new software platform that teachers have to use for their grade book. And so they're kind of freaking out about that as well. So I would think those are and then just assessments are pretty big too. Did you have another question?
You know, so if salary is such a big barrier to keep young teachers here, you know, how, you know, beyond money, what's your sell? What are you telling young professionals? Hey, this is why you should stay in D51 or start your career in D51, or when you get people from the Front Range, how does that conversation go? If we only have so much power over salaries, what's your sell, I guess?
I think it's probably the answer why most of us live here. The more connected you are, the more you want to stay. And so that's why we formed that Empower group. The younger teachers are reaching out to the brand new teachers so that they can start to feel a connection. We try to train their building reps to really be reaching out to them as well, so they feel like they have a family in the building. And then we're trying to get to know, you know, their interests too. I have these goals and aspirations to have all sorts of like hobby clubs within the association too, because there are a lot of us who are cyclists that live here, and there are a lot of members who are cyclists. So, you know, like, you know, and then maybe there's a bunch of knitters. I don't know. Maybe there's a bunch of flint nappers. I don't know. These are some of the ideas that part of that cabinet team is also a membership and organizing committee. They're constantly brainstorming how can we get people to feel rooted here so that they stay. Yeah.
The last thing is what can we as community members do today, right now, to help support teachers, in your opinion?
Why am I looking at you? Do I get to say anything I want? Because Angela will tell me, Heather, behave yourself. We need more money. So while I'm going to say I'm voting yes on Amendment 73, I'm going to tell all of you to go home and do your homework on Amendment 73. I know it's a constitutional amendment. I know some people have great reservations about that. If you don't know anything about how Tabor and Gallagher impact school funding, go research those. That's important for you to understand. I understand the purpose behind Tabor and Gallagher, but it's had unintended consequences, which has greatly impacted, that's a bad word, had a huge impact on school districts. And I don't know that Amendment 73 is going to be the fix for everything, but $30 million to this district, we could raise that base pay up to $40,000, and now we're competing better with Denver. We could raise the average teacher salary across the board. We could pay for assessment teams to come in and help elementary teachers administer their assessments so they're not doing, because some of the assessments are one-on-one. So you know what my teachers are doing? They're calling in for a sub. They're putting their sub in their room with 23 kids, and then they're going in the hall and doing the one-on-one testing with their students. If we had money, we could hire paraprofessionals or substitutes or retired teachers to come in and like blitzkrieg those assessments and get them done. There's a lot we could do with the money, and I understand how the events of this early fall have kind of tainted all of us on when money comes to the district, where does it get spent? I would just say, when you vote no because you're mad at some adult, you're punishing kids for what some other adult did. And so I would recommend that you go home and do your homework on Amendment 73 and then vote accordingly. But we need more money in this district. My job, I think we've learned some things. I've certainly learned something. There was a lack of transparency about where that $1.2 million was going. I found out in the paper just like you did. I'm going to ask more questions this year, and I'm going to make sure that the person who follows me is going to ask more and harder questions. I think the board has learned an awful lot too about oversight and scrutiny of the budgets and not just always trusting the people who give you all of the numbers. I hope that we'll be better in the future, that we can avoid this kind of fiasco again, but we need more money, and then those three players, we all need to make sure the money is going to the classrooms. That was good.
I know part of the general fund is a school funding bill. It's a certain percentage of the property taxes. It's separate than what what goes into the school. It's a separate fund, right? Do you know all of the revenue sources for how they stream into schools? And isn't there a separate school funding measure?
I don't want to misspeak, so I'm an English teacher, so I have really smart math heads on my negotiations team, and so I'm not allowed to answer a lot of the mathy kinds of questions because they tell me I get it wrong. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. There is a general fund, and then there are funds that the mill and bond money is getting spent exactly on what we promised it would get spent on. None of that mill and bond money went to the administrative salaries. But
Another state, like at the state level, a school funding part of the budget, correct? It's separate from what you would normally get out of the fund, out of the general fund. I'll look it up.
yeah, I'm not sure what your question is, so then I'm not sure what my answer is.
I'm not sure what my question is.
Okay, I'm sorry. But you've got my email. If you want to click back to the thingy. If you think of it later and you want to email me, feel free to. Yeah.
I'm an antagonist at heart, and you said you can't answer mathy questions, so I'm going to ask you some more mathy questions. So I'm super ignorant to how the association is the infrastructure is laid out. I assume it's not a 501(c), right? It's more of a government entity than a nonprofit, right?
It is a nonprofit.
Is it a 501(c)(4) because it's dues paid?
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked is based off of what Kyle was asking. What else can we do as a community to support the teachers? And like you mentioned, we don't have a lot of control over the school budget. But if there was a way for you to fundraise for the association and you and Angela work together to provide you a revenue stream specifically for the association so that you could build into the benefits and the programs for the teachers, I feel like that's something that some people in the community would get behind. And if there's a way that I can directly impact and help build up the fact that their salary is so low by just giving to that fund and giving them some sort of extra benefit, that could be one way we can compete with the other side of the mountain. I don't know if it's doable.
I don't know if we are a 503(c). I should probably know these things, but and I don't know that we have the capacity to take contributions because everything's supported through dues paying members. So I don't know. That's a really great question. In the meantime, that's what she does. I mean, they raise so much money for our teachers, and it directly goes to either technology or all of the professional development stuff that's going on for teachers. So in lieu of being able to give me a check, give her a check.
I just want to share a sweet story that happened. It's one of the fun things about being in this position, and it was last December. And if you have a specific need, or a specific thing you would like to donate to, you can do that through us. So I got a phone call last December, and a man said, you know what? I want to give every teacher at a particular school $300 for their classroom. Could I do it through the foundation, and then you would do that and pass it on? You bet I will. That's a really fun phone call to call the principal at that school and say, hey, someone just donated $300 to each of your teachers to hand out. So you can. So it's on our website, it's called donor-directed giving. And so if you have something and you say, hey, I'd love to see every teacher get whatever, you bet. We can make that happen.
My last name is spelled Obrien.
I'm always, no, I'm with you. Like numbers, people start saying numbers and my mind goes blank and I just tune out, sorry. So, but I'm always interested in kind of like the person behind the work. So I'm curious, in your journey as president for the last few years, what has been your greatest challenge, and also what has been your greatest triumph in this role? And I put you on the spot. I can stall for a little bit.
I'll get the challenge out of the way. This fall has been disastrous. It's been demoralizing for teachers, and it's been really hard to go into buildings, and it looks like May on teachers' faces, and it's only barely October. This has been horrific, morale-wise, and so it's been really challenging for me to kind of. I mean, you can see the frustration in my face, right? I have to be the leader and just listen to people and not let my own stuff interfere with their processing. But they've been angry, and I'm their sounding board. So it's like I've been hearing from so many angry people that it's been exhausting. What's exciting to me now about having an interim and having an interim superintendent who is so experienced and so well qualified and has been in situations where she has taken over in other districts and been an interim. I think we've got the right person for the job. And I just met with her this morning, and she has a real intent to both be another sounding board. She wants to help people be able to process through this, and then let's get this ship that's been stranded moving. And I don't mean it's been stranded in the classroom, because teachers every day are working their magic in the classroom. But they go home and they read the paper, or they watch the news, and it's hard, and so it's wearing on their hearts. So they put that aside. They're in front of their kids. They're doing their best, but at home, they're worn out. I'm excited about this new interim. And I'm excited about the work that Angela and I and some other community people are going to do to reach out in our communications. Hi, Charles. To get the message back out in the community that while this really frustrating thing happened, we have a lot of great things going on across the district, and so let's remember that, right? So this fall has been the worst. Triumphs, or what'd you say? Whatever. When I have teachers whom I met a couple years ago who came to me to solve their problems, and I helped them feel empowered that they could solve their own problem, and they took that chance to say what was on their mind in a meeting or with a principal, and they found out they didn't get fired, and they didn't even get in trouble, and their voice was appreciated and heard, and then they wanted to do more, and now they're sitting as my cabinet chairs. That's everything, because I'm going to leave, but those people get to feel empowered forever. I'm going to get all misty, sorry. So I think I've really, really tried to grow the association so that everyone feels like it's their association and they can run it, and I just try to run around, making connections between people. That's been really gratifying. Did you have another one? Or that was it? That's okay. I cry all the time. I don't do math, but I do cry. I can sort of dance. I can ride a bike really, really well. So.
Not literally softball, but just here's an easy one. Only licensed teachers in the association, is that right? No paras, no counselors? Okay. Thank you for that clarity. What you just said was somewhat inspiring. I come from a family full of teachers, and I have 3 family members right now that are teachers in the district. Stewart, none of them have the same last name. So what would be the best way to get them connected with you so that they could look into one of those committee seats? Just
Tell them what you heard here tonight, and tell them come. If they want to do something for the association, I got a place for them. Okay. There's always more work to be done, and because everyone there is volunteering their time, the more volunteers I have, then the less any one person has to donate 1 million hours. They can just donate 500,000 or something, So, yeah, give them my name, give them my email. Do you know if they're members already? Okay, yeah, tell them to contact me. Kat, you made me all weepy. Sorry. It's okay. Other questions?
What are you doing after May? Are you going to start Are you retiring or are you going to start teaching again?
I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. I don't know. There's too much work to be done between now and then. I'll think of that in April when positions start opening up. So I don't know. It'll be fun. Whatever I do, it's always fun.
Can you share a little bit about the retired MVEA?
So there is a retired MVA community. You know, because they're retired, a lot of what they focus on is the Public Employee Retirement Association, so PARA, and keeping track of legislation. And they're really keeping an eye on the governor's race right now because they're kind of two different candidates with two different perspectives on para, and so they're really worried about their retirement, obviously. They also have socials and whatnot, and then they do some volunteering in classrooms, and a lot of them also act as substitutes in our district too, because they just can't quite leave teaching. They just wanted to be on their schedule. And so there's the president of the retired community was a former MVEA president. His name's Paul Van Camp. He was the president, two presidents behind me, and served for 4 years. He's my Yoda master. It was kind of nice. The year I came on board was the year he decided to retire. He had no idea how much he was going to be on the phone with me because I'm like, Paul, I have no idea what I'm doing. How do I do this? And who do I talk to? And so he's definitely still my Yoda master. But he runs the retired association.
He's on our foundation board too, but
He is.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, because they're still, once a teacher, always a teacher. So they like to stay, they're kind of more politically active in a lot of ways than other things, because they're watching education legislation, they're campaigning, they're watching the Paris situation with the governor's race and stuff, and then they occasionally get together for a gin and tonic or whatever.
What are teachers telling you about how kids are changing?
I can watch it in my own kids, and those of you who have kids, they're a different generation than we are. When we were in school, the teacher really knew everything, and we had to sit and listen and take notes. And kids now just Google. They don't need me to teach them. They can Google information, right? And so they don't need access. They already have access to information. What they need to be taught is how to think and how to question and how to process. And then I think they, in a much different way than my generation, has seen a whole lot of successful people not go to college and be bajillionaires because they're innovative and they're creative and they can think outside the box and they can serve people's needs. And so I don't think that they're thinking about college the same way. And considering the debt they're going to take on, I think that's also a deterrent. But I also think it's good because I think we have pushed the college scene for too long. I've lived in Denmark for a while, and they have a whole entire pathway created for people who don't want to go to college. And they're not, oh, you're going to do the apprenticeship thing. They're like, yeah, go out and be a plumber. Yeah, be a skilled carpenter. That's lauded and praised in the Danish culture. So they have a whole educational system built around people are going to do different things in life, so let's prepare them for life. And I think this generation is starting to see that, and our educational system hasn't quite shifted to that yet. And that's what our performance-based learning transformation is all about. So they don't need me to tell them stuff. They need me to push their thinking. They need me to question them. They need me to challenge them. Well, why do you think it's that? And then I think, too, seeing how this social media phenomenon binds them and also destroys them, but binds them in a way that we didn't have, they need to be taught overtly collaboration skills in a way that when we were sitting in rows and just taking notes for 45 minutes and then having tests at the end of the period, we didn't have to collaborate. So I see them wanting, and I hear from teachers that when they start moving towards a more collaborative process, and I teach, older kids. Elementary teachers have been doing this collaboration thing forever, but for middle school and high school teachers, it's kind of a shift to not have desks and rows and to have clumps and to be having kids collaborate, and the classroom's kind of loud and noisy. But I think that's what kids want, and I think that's how they think now because of the way social media and technology has changed their thinking. So I think that's why so many teachers are embracing performance-based learning, because they're seeing that the old way that they were teaching isn't completely meeting this generation's needs. So, yeah. Good questions. That's a good question. I think there have probably always been parents who are angry and blame teachers for everything and enable their kids. And I think there have always been teachers who taught or parents who taught their kids, you respect that teacher. And if I hear you're misbehaving at school, you're going to get it at home. I don't know that that's changed much. I don't know. I don't have much feedback from teachers about parents, but in my own experience, I think that's probably the same. I'm part of a fellowship that's statewide, and they actually came to Grand Junction for our last meeting, and so there were some out-of-towners, and there was a woman from Atlanta here, and it was a Friday night, and there was a football game going on, and the stands were all filled. And we drove past Stoker Stadium, and she said, "Who is that? Is that like your college team?" I said, "No, that's the two rival high schools playing." She's like, "But those stands are filled." I was like, "Yeah, this is Grand Junction. We still go to football games for high school." So, in some ways things haven't changed, in some ways things have. Yeah.
So, are the other districts who are paying more, are they doing more innovative things than Grand Junction, or what is making them, I guess, stand out?
Well, there's kind of two things going on there. Some of those districts are able to pay their teachers more because they are generating more in tax dollars at the local level. So through mill levies and bond issues, they have more money to pay teachers over there. As far as innovations within the state, District 51 is leading the way. We're getting a lot of national attention from our performance-based learning model. So that is one thing that we are being able to draw. Well, some of the newer teachers, they don't know what they don't know, but we have been able to draw some veteran teachers from across the state and other states because of our performance-based learning system. They're interested in it, or they've done it somewhere else and they want to see it, how it's done here. And I would say we're on the cutting edge as far as innovations in pedagogy in a lot of ways. Did that answer your question?
Well, yes, it did.
Okay.
I guess it's raised another question. I thought the whole CDE, the RANDA system that we have to go through with this performance-based thing has been going on throughout the state of Colorado. So are you just saying that it's more innovation here in Grand Junction versus the rest of the state?
RANDA is the software program that houses the teacher evaluation, which is mandated by CDE. That educator effectiveness bill, that's something totally different than performance-based learning. Performance-based learning is a curriculum and a pedagogical approach for teachers and how they're teaching kids, so that they're meeting kids. Instead of just everyone gets exactly the same lesson, I'm going to pre-assess you all, figure out where you are, and then maybe these guys are kind of struggling, and so I'm going to give them a little bit different instruction, and you guys are ahead, so I'm going to push you ahead and give you new material. That's performance-based learning. It's actually a pedagogical approach. The RANDA and the evaluation process is completely different. Can I say something about that? Do you want to hear about that? Okay, so we're all about accountability, right? Our quote is, we do this through accountability for all. We believe that, we know that taxpayers pay for public education, and we believe in being accountable. I don't think there's a teacher who is mad that they have to be evaluated. My husband works for FedEx. He gets he gets evaluated every year. That's not the problem. When you hear teachers complaining about the evaluation system, the CDE rubric, a rubric is a fancy word for how you're graded. The rubric had 317 checkboxes that teachers had to get clicked off on. Now, CDE got a lot of feedback that was way too much, so they reduced it down to 207. But if I'm an evaluator in an elementary school where I have no assistant principal, and I have 40 teachers and 20 classified people, so custodians and secretaries and all of those people, I have to evaluate 60 people, and I have 207 boxes to check for 65 people. How many hours is that going to take me? And when am I going to meet with parents and take care of discipline issues and plan the dance and all of those things, right? So when you hear teachers complaining about the evaluation system, it's not that they don't want to be held accountable, it's that CDE created a monster. So we've actually in our district are trying to create a pilot evaluation program that we're hoping that we'll be able to create, that CDE will give us the thumbs up of, okay, you got a good system, we'll let you do your own system. Because we do want to be able to evaluate our teachers, but it's got to make sense, and it's just impossible the way it is. So, right, yeah.
What's your pitch for why a teacher should be paying $67 a month? 64.
All of those reasons that are on the board. We are the negotiating body for the district. Ooh, hello. So if there's something that you as a teacher want changed, you're probably not going to get it changed on your own, because we have so many connections with the district. So you are empowered by joining us, and I will get you a seat at the table, and you can make your case for whatever it is. That's really the biggest reason in my mind. If you want a voice, if you want to be playing with those other two entities, we're the negotiating body, so come join us. Your dues pay for me as a full-time president to be out in 44 buildings doing those marriage counseling conversations or brainstorming how can we fix the assessment thing or talking about insurance, all of those things that my cabinet chairs oversee, I'm aware of and pass the information on to them. Then there are also other benefits like, we do live in a litigious society. If a kid accused you of something and you needed a lawyer, then the education lawyers at the Colorado Education Association would be paid for, so you're paying for those legal services as well. There are other discounts. You get discounts on car insurance and blah, 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 but I don't think really anybody cares about that. Have you seen Simon Sinek's thing on the Golden Circle? Google Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, the Golden Circle. I don't know what he does, but he gives really good talks. And he talks about people don't care what you do, they care why you do it. And the reason that Apple sells so much is because they don't say, hey, we have really great phones, buy our phone. They don't talk about the what, they talk about the why. In everything that we do, we think differently. That's their why, that's what drives them. And so that appeals to people who also think they think differently. And so people buy Apple because they believe in Apple's why, not because they believe in Apple's product. So I have a whole bunch of products. I can offer you discounts and I can get you a lawyer if you need legal help. But I don't think people really care about that. What I say to people is our why. This is our profession. We should be driving the agenda because we're the ones in direct contact with students. Our voice matters the most. We're the negotiating body. If you want a voice and a seat at the table, be with us. That's our why. You want to join? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, stay home with those babies. You will never get those years back. They go so quickly. My baby's a senior. Anything else? Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate Kat for reaching out to me. I hope I kind of put this together at the last minute. I hope it was organized enough and understandable. But, my big message out to the community is when people ask what I do and I say I'm the teachers union, and I either get, why in the hell would you sign up for that job? Or I get, oh, and they turn around and walk away. You've had an interaction with me. Tell my story. We're not the evil empire. We're not a mafia. This is our profession, and we're just trying to look out for teachers' interests. And I'm so grateful that I live in this district where we have such good relations with our district and our board so that we're all on that same team. That's the message I'd love for you to take out to your friends and community members. So Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Heather. I know, speaking personally, I have been a great admirer of your work and your passion and your tenacity in this role. I've only known you in this role, and I would credit, at least in part, the positive relationship that the district has with the union because of your team player mentality and you fight for that relationship. So thank you for your work on that. So, and thank you all for being here and asking such insightful and thoughtful questions. I learned a ton. So, so thank you so much for being here. So we do have a few minutes, and I would love to open this up to just kind of general discussion. If you guys have any questions or any thoughts that you would like to share about either tonight or what you learned last month that maybe you've had some time to process, or just something that's maybe come up. Is there anything that's on your guys' mind to talk about? Come on, you guys, you can do better than that.
It's hard because it's complex. I mean, the school funding stuff.
Oh.
I found what I was looking for, and it is, let me see if I can just read it? Sure. Maybe this will make sense. So it's the state education fund is what I was talking about. The state education fund was created by Amendment 23 in 2001 to help schools buy textbooks, reduce class sizes, and retain critical staff, and ensure that the state would be able to keep up with the mandatory Amendment 23 per pupil increases in later years. So a small percentage of Colorado's income tax, like 0.33%, is deposited into the state education fund. However, the state education fund was rated post 9/11 budget crunch in order to support general operating expenses. So I'm just wondering where that money is, and that's probably something more for the financial part of the education, but it seems like that's money that should be helping us.
So we did our finance one last month, but yeah, it's very complex. So thanks. Thank you. Grab some food on your way out. So I seem to recall that there's somebody who might be in this room who knows a little bit about that kind of stuff. Is that you that said that you have a little bit of a working understanding of? Mm-hmm. There's a lot that the state withholds from different little pockets for different kind of conveniently not clear reasons. But I will definitely make a note of that and ask our finance guys and let you know. And that's the state funding. And you're just wondering where that money is, what it's doing. Where the money at? Mm-hmm. Right. Because I'm not a numbers person, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I will check with the numbers people and let you know what I hear. Anything else from anybody? You look like you were thinking about something? No? Okay. All right. Yes. Right. Yes, so the interim superintendent was selected by the board. So last week, they conducted some interviews with 3 candidates. All those applications were unsolicited. They just kind of said, hey, I know things are going crazy right now. If you guys need some help, I'm here to help. And so there were 3 candidates who were interviewed. Dr. Norman Ritter, who I think is Denver-based and has some experience in school districts as superintendents and that kind of thing. Matthew Deers, who previously worked in this district. He was the executive director of high schools for a few years. He was principal of Palisade High School for quite a while. So he also was one of the candidates. And then Dr. Diana Circo, who currently works at CMU in the education program. It's a little more nuanced than that, at educational leadership program, and has also been superintendent of the Roaring Fork School District and the Aspen School District. So last week, the board interviewed those candidates. They were also interviewed by a panel of community members, and the community members made a recommendation. The board kind of put their heads together and selected Dr. Diana Circo. So that decision happened on Tuesday. I think they're still kind of tightening up her contract to see how that all's going to look. So we don't have a start date for her just yet, but that decision was made. So we're looking forward to having somebody at the helm. And the search for a permanent superintendent will start soon, and we hope to have somebody ready to start the year on July 1 next year. It's likely not. My understanding is that she's kind of been brought in with the understanding that this is just a temporary thing. She's just going to kind of serve until we can find a permanent replacement. Anything else? Well, as always, you have some note cards, so if you think of something that you just don't want to say out loud, you can write down a question and leave them on your space right now. You can also email me, Facebook me. Before I forget, we also have, some of you may be interested in participating in a discussion about school calendars coming up. So we have three focus groups coming up if you guys are interested. And I'll put this all in an email and everything, but if you want to write down some dates, October 8th and October 15th and November 5th, we'll be meeting in this room. And these are all going to be the same meeting. We're just having them multiple times so that people can come whenever they're available. 5:30 to 7. Don has been to one of our meetings, so I'm sure he can attest to the interesting discussions that happen there. But if you're interested in weighing in a little bit about school calendars and being part of the process of recommending something to the board, please come. And again, those dates are October 8th, the 15th, and November 5th, 5:30 to 7 in this room. So if you're interested in that. Is there anything I'm forgetting? I don't think so. It really was. So please, I mean, the more voices, the better, because otherwise it gets a little one-sided. But it's just a focus group. Yep. I'm sure I'm going to think of something as soon as you guys leave. But thank you again for coming. Our next meeting will be here, hopefully, unless I get booted out again, November 8th. Thank you. We'll be talking about the learning model. So this performance-based learning term that you've been hearing a lot, you're going to finally get knee-deep in what that means. So we'll be meeting here next month. As always, if you guys have questions or thoughts in the meantime, feel free to reach out and take some food for the road, please. So have a great night, everybody. Thank you.